Admiral Zexthara had been commanding Imperial fleets for over 30 years. She had conquered rebellious worlds, crushed pirate armadas, and brought order to the chaos of wild space. Nothing surprised her anymore. At least that's what she thought. Until today, the bridge of her flagship was buzzing with the usual activity of a patrol mission. Officers moved between their stations, checking readings and monitoring communications from the other 49 ships in her fleet. This was supposed to be a routine sweep of the Outer Rim territories, looking for any signs of unauthorized settlements or smuggling operations. "Admiral, we're picking up something strange on long-range sensors," called out Lieutenant Vexilon. From the scanning station, his voice carried a note of confusion that made Zexthara look up from her tactical display. "Define strange, Lieutenant," she said, walking over to his station. The young officer had been with her crew for 3 years and rarely made mistakes. "Ma'am, there's a massive energy signature emerging from hyperspace, approximately 12 million kilometers off our starboard bow. But the readings don't match anything in our database." Zexthara frowned. The Imperial database contained information on every known ship type in the galaxy. From ancient cargo haulers to the most advanced military vessels, everything was cataloged. "Unclassified. Run the scan again. Your equipment might be malfunctioning." Vexilon's claws clicked nervously against his console as he initiated another sweep. "Ma'am, the readings are getting stronger. Whatever this is, it's big, really big." The main holographic display flickered to life, showing a 3-dimensional map of the surrounding space. At first, there was nothing unusual visible. Then, like a ghost materializing from thin air, a shape began to form on the scanner. Commander Thekra, Zexthara's second-in-command, stepped forward and gasped. "By the Ancient Ones, what is that thing?" The ship that appeared on their screens was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was enormous, easily twice the size of their own. Dreadnought, but its design was completely alien to Imperial engineering principles. Where Imperial ships were built for intimidation with angular, aggressive lines and dark metal plating, this vessel seemed to flow like liquid metal. Its hull gleamed with a silver-white finish that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "Tactical analysis," Zexthara ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. "Admiral, the ship's energy output is—" Vexilon paused, rechecking his readings. "Ma'am, it's generating more power than our entire fleet combined. The propulsion system appears to be some kind of advanced gravity manipulation drive. I've never seen anything like it." Zexthara felt a cold sensation in her stomach. The Empire prided itself on having the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Their ships were faster, stronger, and more sophisticated than anything their enemies could field. But this vessel made their proudest achievements look like primitive toys. "What about weapons?" Commander Thekra asked. "That's the strange part," the sensor operator replied. "I'm not detecting any conventional weapon systems. No plasma cannons, no missile tubes, no particle beam arrays. But there are these energy conduits running throughout the hull that I can't identify. Could it be a civilian vessel?" Zexthara wondered aloud, though even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. No civilian ship needed that much power or such advanced shielding. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the unknown vessel," announced Communications Officer Kelter. On screen, the holographic display shifted to show the bridge of the mysterious ship. What they saw made every Imperial officer freeze in shock. The bridge was filled with creatures they had only heard about in intelligence briefings, humans, but these weren't the primitive, barely civilized humans their reports described. The figure standing at the center of the bridge wore a crisp uniform that spoke of military discipline and advanced manufacturing. Her hair was pulled back in a neat style, and her eyes held the calm confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Prometheus Dawn," the human said in perfect galactic standard. "We're on a peaceful mission of exploration. We detected your fleet and wanted to avoid any misunderstandings." Zexthara stared at the human captain. According to Imperial intelligence, humans had barely developed faster-than-light travel. They were supposed to be confined to a small cluster of worlds in an unimportant sector of the galaxy. They definitely weren't supposed to have ships that could make the Empire's finest vessels look outdated. "This is Admiral Zexthara of the Imperial Navy," she replied, fighting to keep her voice professional. "Your vessel is in Imperial space. State your intentions." Captain Rodriguez smiled slightly. "We're simply passing through, Admiral. We have no hostile intentions toward the Empire or any of its citizens." Behind the captain, the human bridge crew worked at stations that looked impossibly advanced. Holographic displays floated in mid-air, responding to gestures and thought commands. The technology was so far beyond Imperial capabilities that Zexthara couldn't even begin to understand how it worked. "Admiral," Vexilon whispered urgently, "their ship just did something to our sensors. I'm getting readings that suggest they're somehow existing in multiple dimensions at once." This was impossible. The Empire had been studying dimensional physics for centuries and had barely scratched the surface of such concepts. Yet these humans seemed to be casually using technology that Imperial scientists could only dream about. "Captain Rodriguez," Zexthara said carefully, "your ship appears to be equipped with technology we're not familiar with. How did humanity acquire such advanced capabilities?" The human captain's expression became thoughtful. "Admiral, I think there may be some misunderstandings about human technological development. We've been working on these systems for quite some time." "Quite some time?" According to Imperial records, humans had only achieved spaceflight within the last few centuries. How could they have developed such incredible technology so quickly? "Admiral, we're receiving multiple priority communications from the other ships in our fleet," Commander Thekra reported. "They're all asking for instructions on how to respond to this situation." Zexthara looked around her bridge. Every officer was staring at the human ship with a mixture of awe and fear. These were veteran spacers who had seen action across the galaxy, but none of them had ever encountered anything like this. The Prometheus Dawn hung in space like a silver dream, its hull reflecting the light of nearby stars in patterns that seemed almost artistic. It didn't look like a weapon of war, but then again, when you possess technology this advanced, you probably didn't need your ships to look threatening. "Captain Rodriguez," Zexthara said slowly, "would you be willing to meet in person?" "I think we have much to discuss," the human captain nodded. "I'd be happy to, Admiral." "Should we arrange a neutral location, or would you prefer to meet aboard one of our vessels?" The casual way she offered to host Imperial officers aboard her ship sent another chill through Zexthara. Either these humans were incredibly naive about military protocol, or they were so confident in their capabilities that they felt completely safe, looking at the sleek vessel on her screen. Zexthara suspected it was the latter. The galaxy had just become a much more complicated place, and the Empire's position as the dominant power was no longer as secure as they had believed. The age of human mystery was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same again. Captain Rodriguez stood calmly on the bridge of the Prometheus Dawn, watching as 50 Imperial warships slowly moved into what they clearly thought was an attack formation. Her crew remained focused on their duties, but she could sense the tension building throughout the ship. This wasn't how she had hoped their first meeting with the Empire would go. "Captain, they're trying to surround us," reported her tactical officer. Lieutenant Chun, the young man's voice stayed steady, but his knuckles were white as he gripped his console. "Let them," Rodriguez replied quietly. "We're not here to fight." On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Zexthara was struggling with a situation that made no sense. Standard Imperial protocol when encountering unknown vessels was simple: demonstrate overwhelming force, demand surrender, and take control. It had worked for centuries against every species they had encountered, but the human ship just sat there, apparently unconcerned by the massive firepower now aimed at it. "Admiral, should we fire a warning shot?" Commander Thekra asked. "The alien vessel is ignoring our positioning." Zexthara hesitated. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. The human captain had seemed genuinely peaceful, but her ship's technology was so advanced that it could probably destroy the entire Imperial fleet without breaking a sweat. Fire one plasma bolt across their bow, she ordered finally. Let them know we're serious. The plasma cannon on the flagship charged up with its familiar whining sound. A brilliant bolt of superheated energy streaked across space, passing just in front of the Prometheus Dawn's hull. It was a standard warning shot, designed to show superior firepower without actually causing damage. What happened next made every Imperial officer question everything they thought they knew about space combat. The plasma bolt simply disappeared. Not absorbed, not deflected, not destroyed. It just vanished completely as if it had never existed at all. What just happened? Zexthara demanded. Ma'am, our plasma bolt just stopped existing, Vexilon reported, his voice filled with confusion. The human ship didn't even activate any visible defense systems. On the Prometheus Dawn, Rodriguez turned to her science officer. Dr. Kim, what did our shields register? Nothing, Captain, the older woman replied with a slight smile. The plasma bolt was automatically converted to useful energy and fed into our power grid. Their weapons are actually helping to recharge our batteries. Rodriguez almost laughed. The Empire's most powerful weapons were about as threatening to their ship as a flashlight would be to a tank. The Imperial fleet began moving again, trying to complete their encirclement. 50 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon, slowly closed in on the single human vessel. Captain, they're almost in position, Lieutenant Chun reported. Show them what our ship can really do, Rodriguez said calmly. The Prometheus Dawn began to glow. It wasn't a bright light, just a soft silver radiance that seemed to come from within the hull itself. Then, impossible as it seemed, the ship started to fade. Admiral, the human vessel is disappearing from our sensors, Vexilon called out in panic. Visual contact? Zexthara asked. Still there, ma'am, but our targeting systems can't lock onto it. It's like they're existing in a different dimension. The human ship became completely transparent, like a ghost made of starlight. The Imperial fleet's formation was now surrounding empty space. Their weapons aimed at nothing. Then the Prometheus Dawn reappeared, but not where it had been before. It was now floating calmly in the middle of the Imperial formation, somehow having moved through their energy nets and defensive screens without triggering a single alarm. How did they get inside our formation? Commander Thekra whispered, nobody. Had an answer. Captain Rodriguez opened the communication channel again. Admiral Zexthara, I want to assure you that we mean no harm. We're simply demonstrating that your current tactical approach isn't going to work. The Admiral stared at the holographic display showing the human captain. The woman looked completely relaxed, as if being surrounded by 50 hostile warships was just another day at the office. How did you move your ship through our defensive perimeter? Zexthara asked. We shifted into subspace for a moment, Rodriguez explained casually. It's a fairly simple maneuver once you understand how dimensional physics actually work. Simple maneuver? The Empire's best scientists had been trying to figure out subspace travel for generations, and this human was talking about it like it was as easy as taking a walk. Admiral, we're getting reports from the other ships, communications officer Kelter announced. Several captains are requesting permission to withdraw to a safe distance. Zexthara couldn't blame them. The human ship had just demonstrated that it could appear anywhere it wanted, completely bypassing their defenses. If the humans decided to attack, the Imperial fleet would be helpless. Captain Rodriguez, she said carefully, your technology is far more advanced than our intelligence reports indicated. How long has humanity possessed these capabilities? The human captain paused, as if considering how much to reveal. Admiral, I think your intelligence reports might be somewhat out of date. We've been developing these systems for quite some time. Dr. Patel, the Empire's chief xenobiologist, had been frantically searching through historical databases ever since the human ship appeared. Now he approached Admiral Zexthara with a datapad in his hands. Admiral, I've been researching everything we know about human development, he said quietly. According to our records, they should barely have faster-than-light travel. This level of technology should be impossible for them to achieve. Unless our records are wrong, Zexthara replied grimly. That's what worries me, ma'am. If we're this wrong about human capabilities, what else don't we know? The Prometheus Dawn continued to float peacefully in the center of the Imperial formation. Its crew seemed completely unconcerned by the massive firepower surrounding them. In fact, they appeared to be conducting normal operations, as if 50 hostile warships weren't even worth their attention. "Admiral, the human ship is scanning our vessels," Vexilon reported. "But their sensors are so advanced that our detection systems can barely register the scans." This was getting worse by the minute. Not only were the humans demonstrating superior technology, but they were now studying Imperial ships with impunity. "Should we try to jam their sensors?" Commander Thekra asked. "With what?" Zexthara replied bitterly. "Our best electronic warfare systems probably look like children's toys to them." Captain Rodriguez had been watching the Imperial fleet's attempts to adapt to their presence with growing concern. She had hoped this first meeting would go smoothly, but it was clear that the Empire was struggling to accept what they were seeing. "Lieutenant Chun, prepare a full sensor sweep of their fleet," she ordered. "Already completed, Captain," he replied. "Their technology is roughly equivalent to what we were using about 200 years ago. Functional but extremely primitive by current standards." Rodriguez nodded. The gap between human and Imperial technology was even larger than Earth scientists had predicted. This was going to make peaceful contact much more difficult. "Dr. Kim, what's your assessment of their reaction?" "They're scared, Captain." The science officer replied honestly. "Their entire worldview is based on being the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. We've just proved that assumption wrong." The Imperial fleet remained frozen in their formation, unsure of what to do next. Their standard protocols had failed completely. Their weapons were useless, their defenses had been bypassed, and their enemies seemed completely uninterested in fighting. For the first time in Imperial history, they had encountered a force they couldn't intimidate or defeat. The age of Imperial dominance was about to end, and everyone on both sides knew it. The question now was whether this first contact would lead to war or something entirely different. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance, waiting for someone to make the next move. Dr. Rivera stood at her science station aboard the Prometheus Dawn, watching the Imperial fleet's increasingly desperate attempts to understand their ship. As the vessel's chief science officer, she had spent years preparing for this moment. But seeing the reality of first contact was still overwhelming. "Captain, they're running full-spectrum scans on us again," she reported to Captain Rodriguez. "That's the 15th attempt in the last 10 minutes. Any luck for them?" Rodriguez asked, though she already knew the answer. "None at all. Their sensors can't penetrate even our outer hull layer. To them, we might as well be made of solid energy." Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial flagship, Chief Engineer Morduk was having the worst day of his long career. For 40 years he had been responsible for maintaining and upgrading the Empire's most advanced starships. He knew every bolt, every circuit, every line of code in Imperial technology, but this human ship made absolutely no sense. "Admiral, I've run every scan we have," he reported to Zexthara, his voice filled with frustration. "Our most powerful sensors can't even tell us what their hull is made of? The material seems to shift and change its properties constantly." "What about their power source?" the Admiral asked. "That's even more impossible," Morduk replied, shaking his head. "According to our readings, they're drawing energy directly from empty space itself. That should be theoretically impossible." Dr. Rivera smiled as she monitored the Imperial scanning attempts. The humans had been studying Imperial technology for decades through careful observation and recovered debris from old battlefields. They knew exactly how primitive the Empire's science really was. TLAS, show me a breakdown of their scanning methods," she said to the ship's artificial intelligence. A holographic display materialized in front of her, showing detailed analysis of every Imperial sensor beam hitting their ship. The AI's voice, calm and slightly amused, filled the air around her. "Doctor, their technology appears to be based on principles we abandoned approximately 2 centuries ago. Their scanning resolution is roughly equivalent to trying to examine a computer chip. With a magnifying glass? That bad? Rivera asked. Worse, they're using linear thinking to try and understand quantum dimensional engineering. It would be like explaining nuclear physics to someone who still believes the sun revolves around Earth. Captain Rodriguez walked over to the science station. Through the main view screen, she could see the Imperial ships maintaining their formation, but she noticed something concerning. Several of the smaller vessels were beginning to move away from the Prometheus Dawn. They're getting scared, she observed. Can you blame them? Rivera replied. From their perspective, we just appeared out of nowhere with technology that makes their best ships look like museum pieces. On the Imperial flagship, the situation was rapidly becoming a crisis. Admiral Zexthara had called an emergency meeting with her senior officers, but none of them had any useful answers. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, she said, looking around the conference table. We have a single human vessel that can move through solid matter, ignore our most powerful weapons, and uses technology we can't even detect, let alone understand. That's correct, Admiral, Commander Thekra confirmed grimly. And according to our intelligence, humans are supposed to be barely capable of interstellar travel. Also correct. Zexthara rubbed her forehead, feeling a headache building. So, either our intelligence network is completely incompetent, or these humans have been hiding their true capabilities for decades. Dr. Patel cleared his throat nervously. Admiral, I've been thinking about that. What if both are true? Everyone turned to look at the xenobiologist. Explain, Zexthara ordered. Well, ma'am, what if the humans we've been observing aren't representative of their entire species? What if there are different groups of humans with vastly different technological levels? You mean like how the Empire has both advanced core worlds and primitive frontier colonies? Commander Thekra asked. Exactly. But taken much further, what if some humans developed this incredible technology while others remained at the level we expected? It was a terrifying thought. If some humans had technology this advanced, how many others were out there? How long had they been watching? Imperial activities? And most importantly, what did they want? Aboard the Prometheus Dawn, Captain Rodriguez was having similar thoughts, but from the opposite perspective. The Imperial fleet's reaction was exactly what Earth scientists had predicted, but it was still painful to watch. Dr. Rivera, begin a detailed scan of their fleet, she ordered. I want to know everything about their capabilities. Already done, Captain, Rivera replied. The results are interesting, but not particularly impressive. The holographic display shifted to show a three-dimensional representation of the Imperial fleet. Each ship was color-coded based on its technological level, and the results were sobering. Their most advanced vessels are roughly equivalent to our early prototype ships from the late 2200s, Rivera explained. Functional faster-than-light drives, basic energy weapons, primitive defensive systems. Nothing that would pose a threat to current human technology. What about their numbers? Lieutenant Chen asked from his tactical station. 50 ships is still 50 ships. True, Rodriguez acknowledged. But quantity doesn't always make up for quality. Atlas, what would happen if this fleet decided to attack us? The AI's response was immediate and somewhat chilling. Captain, based on current tactical analysis, this entire Imperial fleet could be neutralized within approximately 12 minutes without any risk to the Prometheus Dawn or her crew. The bridge fell silent for a moment as everyone absorbed that information. 12 minutes to defeat 50 warships? Rodriguez asked. That estimate includes time for warning shots and attempts at non-lethal solutions, Atlas clarified. If lethal force were authorized, the engagement would conclude in under 3 minutes. Dr. Rivera shook her head in amazement. It's hard to believe the gap is that large. The Empire has been the dominant power in this region for so long that they've become complacent, Rodriguez explained. They haven't faced any real technological challenges in centuries. Meanwhile, humanity has been pushing the boundaries of science and engineering for pure survival. Back on the Imperial flagship, Chief Engineer Mordock was studying the latest sensor readings with growing alarm. The human ship wasn't just advanced. It was operating on principles that the Empire didn't even know existed. "Admiral, I need to show you something," he said, approaching Zexthara with a datapad. "Look at these power readings." The Admiral examined the display, frowning. "These numbers don't make sense. According to this, their ship is generating more energy than a small star." "That's what I thought too, but I have triple-checked the readings. Somehow, they're extracting energy directly from the quantum vacuum. That should be impossible according to every law of physics we know." "Maybe we need to learn some new laws of physics," Zexthara said grimly. Dr. Patel had been quietly working at another station, analyzing the human ship's design principles. What he discovered made his blood run cold. "Admiral, I think I know why we can't understand their technology," he announced. "Go ahead." "They're not just using advanced versions of systems we know. They're using completely different approaches to fundamental problems. Their hull isn't made of metal or any material we recognize. It appears to be composed of programmable matter that can change its properties at will." "Programmable matter?" Commander Thekra asked. "Imagine if you could tell a piece of metal to become transparent or super strong or conductive just by thinking about it. That's what they appear to have." The implications were staggering. If humans could create materials that changed properties on command, they could adapt to any situation instantly. No wonder their ship seemed invulnerable. Captain Rodriguez made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. She opened a communication channel to the Imperial flagship. "Admiral Zexthara, I think it's time we had an honest conversation about what's really happening here." The Admiral's image appeared on the main screen, looking tired and frustrated. "I'm listening, Captain." "Your fleet is trying to analyze our ship using tools that simply aren't capable of understanding our technology. It would be like trying to understand a computer using only a hammer." "Then help us understand," Zexthara said bluntly. "What are we really looking at?" Rodriguez paused, knowing that her next words would shatter the Empire's worldview forever. "Admiral, you're looking at what happens when an entire civilization dedicates itself to scientific advancement for 300 years. We didn't stop exploring, learning, and growing. We kept pushing forward, solving problems that seemed impossible because we had to." The bridge of the Imperial flagship was silent as everyone absorbed the implications of that statement. The humans hadn't just built better ships. They had fundamentally reimagined what was possible. The tension in space was thick enough to cut with a knife. Captain Rodriguez stood on her bridge, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether this first contact led to peace or a war that would devastate the galaxy she had made. The decision to reveal the truth, but she wasn't sure if the Empire was ready to hear it. Admiral Zexthara stared at the human captain on her screen, trying to process what she had just heard. 300 years of dedicated scientific advancement. That meant humans had been developing this technology since before the Empire had even discovered their existence. "Captain Rodriguez, are you saying that humanity has been actively hiding their true capabilities from us?" she asked carefully. Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Not just from you, Admiral. From everyone. We've been observing galactic civilization for decades, studying your cultures, your politics, your military capabilities. We needed to understand what kind of galaxy we were preparing to join." The Imperial bridge fell dead silent. Communications Officer Kelter dropped his stylus and it clattered loudly on the deck. The sound seemed deafening in the sudden quiet. "You've been watching us?" Commander Thekra whispered. "Through advanced stealth technology and long-range observation posts," Rodriguez confirmed. "We've been learning your languages, studying your trade routes, monitoring your conflicts. We wanted to make sure we understood the political situation before making contact." Dr. Patel felt his legs go weak. "For how long?" "Our first observation posts were established about 60 years ago," Rodriguez replied matter-of-factly. "We've, been expanding our monitoring network ever since." 60 years. The Empire had been going about their business, conquering worlds and expanding their territory, completely unaware that an advanced human civilization was watching their every move. It was the intelligence failure of the millennium. "Admiral, Chief Engineer Mordick said quietly, "If they've been watching us for that long, they know everything. Our military capabilities, our weaknesses, our strategic plans." Zexthara felt sick. The Empire prided itself on having the best intelligence network in the galaxy, yet they had been completely blind to humanity's true nature for decades. Captain Rodriguez could see the shock and fear spreading across the Imperial Bridge. She had expected this reaction, but it was still difficult to watch. These people had built their entire civilization around the belief that they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. "Admiral, I want to assure you that our observations were purely for defensive purposes," she said gently. "We had no intention of interfering in galactic affairs unless it became necessary to protect Earth." "Protect Earth from what?" Zexthara asked. "From aggressive expansion by any galactic power that might threaten human worlds," Rodriguez replied honestly. "We've been monitoring the Empire's expansion patterns. Some of your recent conquests came uncomfortably close to systems we consider important." Dr. Rivera stepped forward at her captain's gesture. "Admiral, if I may explain our perspective? From our observations, the Empire has a consistent pattern of military conquest followed by cultural assimilation. We needed to determine whether this represented a threat to human independence." The Imperial officers exchanged glances. Put that way, their expansion policies did sound rather threatening from an outsider's perspective. "How many systems do you control?" Commander Thekra asked. Rodriguez paused, knowing that her answer would be another shock. "Currently, we have established colonies in 23 star systems. Most of them are in regions the Empire considers uninhabited. 23 systems?" Zexthara's voice cracked slightly. "Our surveys showed those areas were empty." "Our stealth technology is quite advanced," Lieutenant Chun explained from his station. "We can establish entire colonies without being detected by conventional scanning methods." This was getting worse by the minute. Not only had humans been secretly watching the Empire, but they had been expanding right under their noses. Entire human worlds existed in what the Empire thought was empty space. "Captain Rodriguez," Admiral Zexthara said slowly, "are you telling me that humanity has been building a secret interstellar civilization while we remain completely unaware?" "I prefer to think of it as cautious expansion," Rodriguez replied. "We learned from studying galactic history that first contact situations often go badly for the less advanced species. We wanted to make sure we were ready before revealing ourselves." Dr. Patel was frantically running calculations in his head. 23 systems with this level of technology. "Captain, how many ships like yours does humanity possess?" Rodriguez exchanged a look with her science officer. "The Prometheus Dawn is actually one of our older diplomatic vessels. It's designed for peaceful contact missions, not military operations." The implication hit the Imperial officers like a physical blow. If this incredibly advanced ship was considered old by human standards, what did their current military vessels look like? "Admiral, incoming priority message from High Command," Kelter announced, his voice shaking. On screen, the holographic display shifted to show Grand Admiral Vexkoth, the highest-ranking military officer in the Empire. His face was grim, and his usual commanding presence seemed diminished. "Admiral Zexthara, we've been monitoring your situation. The Emperor has been briefed, and he's concerned." That was putting it mildly. The Emperor was probably furious that such a massive intelligence failure had occurred on his watch. "Sir, the humans claim they've been observing us for decades," Zexthara reported. "We know. Our deep space monitoring stations just detected 17 additional human vessels entering Imperial space. They appeared simultaneously across multiple sectors. 17 more ships?" Captain Rodriguez looked genuinely surprised by this news. "Atlas, were we expecting additional vessels?" she asked her ship's AI. "Captain, Earth Command has dispatched a diplomatic escort," the AI replied. They felt that a single ship might not adequately represent humanity's position in these negotiations. "The negotiations?" Grand Admiral Vexkoth's S-image leaned forward. "Captain, what exactly does humanity want from the Empire?" Rodriguez took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for since leaving Earth. Grand Admiral, we want to prevent a war that would devastate both our civilizations. Our analysis suggests that continued imperial expansion will eventually lead to conflict with human territories. We'd prefer to resolve this situation through diplomacy. And if diplomacy fails? Vex_Koth asked. The question hung in the air like a threat. Everyone knew what he was really asking. What would happen if the Empire decided to fight? Sir, with respect, I don't think you want to find out, Rodriguez replied quietly. Our defensive capabilities are designed to protect human worlds at any cost. The Grand Admiral's expression darkened. Is that a threat, Captain? It's a fact, sir. We've spent 3 centuries preparing for the possibility that we might need to defend ourselves against a technologically inferior, but numerically superior enemy. Our entire military doctrine is built around that scenario. Dr. Rivera activated a holographic display that showed tactical simulations. Admiral, our computers have run extensive models of potential conflicts. In every scenario, a war between humanity and the Empire would result in the complete destruction of Imperial military forces within 6 months. 6 months? Commander Thekra gasped. That's assuming the Empire could maintain organized resistance that long, Rivera continued. Our actual projections suggest most Imperial fleets would be neutralized within the first few weeks. The bridge of the Imperial flagship was silent except for the hum of life support systems. Everyone was staring at the tactical projections, showing their mighty fleet being systematically destroyed by human technology they couldn't even understand. Captain Rodriguez, Admiral Zexthara said finally, what do you propose? A formal peace treaty, Rodriguez replied immediately. Recognition of human territorial claims, establishment of trade relationships, and a mutual non-aggression pact. We have technologies that could benefit the Empire, and you have cultural knowledge that could help humanity better understand galactic civilization. And if the Empire refuses? Rodriguez's expression became sad but determined. Then we'll return to our hidden colonies and continue expanding in secret. Eventually, our territories will overlap, and the conflict we're trying to avoid will become inevitable. Grand Admiral Vexkath's image flickered as he considered the options. The Empire could fight a war they couldn't win, or they could negotiate with an enemy that had been outmaneuvering them for decades. For the first time in Imperial history, they were facing an opponent they couldn't intimidate or defeat. The age of Imperial dominance was over, and everyone in the fleet knew it. The question now was whether they could adapt to this new reality or whether pride would lead them to destruction. The silence stretched for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. Captain Rodriguez watched the Imperial officers struggle with a decision that would reshape the entire galaxy. She could see the conflict in Admiral Zexthara's eyes, the battle between military pride and cold, hard reality. Finally, Grand Admiral Vexkoth spoke from the holographic display. Captain Rodriguez, you mentioned that humanity has technologies that could benefit the Empire. What exactly are you offering? Rodriguez had been hoping for this question. Advanced medical technology that could extend lifespans by centuries. Clean energy systems that could power entire worlds without environmental damage. Transportation methods that could cut travel time between star systems by 90%. The Imperial officers exchanged glances. These weren't just minor improvements, they were revolutionary advances that could transform their entire civilization. As a gesture of good faith, Rodriguez continued, I'm prepared to transmit the technical specifications for our basic fusion enhancement systems right now. Dr. Rivera stepped forward with a data crystal in her hand. This contains blueprints for power generators that are roughly 1,000 times more efficient than your current technology. It's not our most advanced system, but it should be enough to demonstrate our sincerity. Admiral Zexthara stared at the crystal. 1,000 times more efficient? That single piece of technology could solve the Empire's energy problems for the next millennium. Why? She asked. Why share this with us? You could easily conquer the galaxy with your superior technology. Because conquest isn't our goal, Rodriguez replied simply. We want to explore the universe, learn about other cultures, and push the boundaries of science. We can't do that if we're constantly fighting wars. Lieutenant Chun pulled up a star chart on the main display. Admiral, our long-term projections show that this galaxy contains millions of habitable worlds. There's more than enough space for both human and imperial expansion without conflict. But only if we work together instead of against each other. Rodriguez added, on the Imperial flagship, Chief Engineer Mordek was practically vibrating with excitement as he examined the preliminary data Rodriguez had transmitted. Admiral, these power systems are incredible. If we could build just one of these generators, it could supply energy to an entire planet. What about the catch? Commander Thekra asked suspiciously. There's always a catch with deals this good. Rodriguez smiled slightly. The catch is that you'll need to completely rethink your approach to science and engineering. These technologies require a level of cooperation between different fields that the Empire hasn't typically embraced. Dr. Patel frowned. What do? You mean your scientific community is highly compartmentalized, Dr. Rivera explained. Physicists work separately from engineers, who work separately from biologists. Our advances come from treating all sciences as interconnected parts of a greater whole. This was true, and everyone on the Imperial Bridge knew it. The Empire's rigid hierarchy extended to their research institutions, where different departments rarely shared information or collaborated on projects. You're saying we'd need to change our entire scientific culture? Admiral Zexthara asked. Not change it, Rodriguez corrected. Expand it. Your current methods work, but they're limiting your potential. We're offering to help you break through. Those limitations? Grand Admiral Vexkoth had been listening to the conversation with growing interest. The strategic implications were staggering. An alliance with humanity could advance Imperial technology by centuries overnight, but there was still the matter of Imperial pride. Captain Rodriguez, if we agree to this alliance, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't use their technological advantage against us in the future? The same guarantee you're giving us, Rodriguez replied. Mutual trust and shared interests. We're both spacefaring civilizations with a desire to explore and expand. Working together serves both our purposes better than conflict. She paused, then added something that surprised everyone. Besides, we're not the only advanced civilization in this galaxy. Our long-range surveys have detected at least 3 other species with technology comparable to ours. If we spend our time fighting each other, we'll be vulnerable to external threats. This was news to the Imperial officers. 3 other species with advanced technology? Their intelligence networks had completely missed this. Where are these other civilizations? Vexkoth demanded. Far beyond current Imperial borders, Lieutenant Shun replied, bringing up a galactic map. 2 in the Galactic Core region, 1 in the Outer Rim territories. They haven't made contact with anyone yet, but our projections suggest that will change within the next 50 years. Dr. Rivera nodded. 1 appears to be a machine intelligence that's been systematically converting entire star systems into computational matrices. Another seems to be a collective consciousness that views other species as potential components to be absorbed. The implications were terrifying. The Empire had been so focused on their local expansion that they had completely missed galactic-scale threats developing in distant regions. And the third? Admiral Zexthara asked. We're still trying to understand them, Rodriguez admitted. They appear to exist partially outside normal space-time. Our best guess is that they're explorers from another dimension? Commander Thekra shook his head in disbelief. How did we miss all of this? Because you were looking in the wrong direction, Dr. Rivera explained gently. The Empire's expansion has been focused on nearby systems with obvious resources. These other civilizations are operating on completely different scales. Grand Admiral Vex_Koth was beginning to understand the true scope of the situation. The Empire wasn't just facing a decision about relations with humanity, they were being offered a chance to join a galactic community they didn't even know existed. Captain Rodriguez, assuming we agree to this alliance, what would be the next steps? Formal. Negotiations on neutral ground, Rodriguez replied immediately. We suggest a meeting on one of the uninhabited worlds in the border region between our territories. Both sides can bring their best diplomats and scientists to work out the details. How long would such negotiations take? Zexthara asked. That depends on how quickly both sides can adapt to new ideas, Rodriguez said diplomatically. But based on our analysis of imperial decision-making processes, probably 6 to 8 months for a comprehensive agreement. Dr. Patel looked up from his datapad with excitement. Admiral, I've been reviewing the technical specifications they transmitted. This is revolutionary science. If we can learn to build these systems, the Empire could become a true galactic power instead of just a regional one. The bridge crew began to murmur among themselves. The possibility of advancing Imperial technology by centuries was incredibly tempting. Captain, Admiral Zexthara said slowly, if we agree to these negotiations, what assurance do we have that other Imperial fleets won't interfere? We'll provide that assurance ourselves, came a new voice. Everyone turned to see another human vessel appearing on the sensors. This ship was even larger than the Prometheus Dawn, and its design was clearly military in nature. This is Admiral Chun of the Earth Defense Force vessel Titan's Shield, the new voice announced. Captain Rodriguez, my apologies for the delayed arrival. We had to make sure all Imperial fleets in this sector received the ceasefire message. Captain Rodriguez looked surprised. Admiral Chun, I wasn't expecting military backup. Earth Command decided that diplomatic missions should have appropriate protection, Admiral Chun replied. Especially when dealing with an empire that has a history of shooting first and asking questions later. The Imperial officers stared at the new ship on their screens. If the Prometheus Dawn had seemed impossibly advanced, this military vessel looked like something from their nightmares. Its hull bristled with weapon systems they couldn't identify, and its energy readings made their flagship look like a toy. How many ships did Earth send? Grand Admiral Vexcath asked quietly. Enough to ensure peaceful negotiations. Admiral Chun replied diplomatically. The message was clear. Humanity was serious about peace. But they were also prepared for war if necessary. Captain Rodriguez made the final push. Admiral Zexthara, Grand Admiral Vexcath, you have a choice to make. You can cling to old ideas about Imperial dominance and face an uncertain future alone. Or you can embrace change and help build something greater than either of our civilizations could achieve separately. She gestured to the star chart still displayed on the main screen. This galaxy is vast and full of wonders we haven't even imagined yet. Humanity wants to explore it with allies, not conquer it as enemies. The two senior Imperial officers looked at each other, then at their crews, then back at the human captain who had just offered to revolutionize their entire civilization. The age of Imperial isolation was ending. The question was whether it would end in cooperation or catastrophe. The decision would reshape the galaxy forever.